Greetings, welcome to ITR Live. I'm your host, Chris Hagan, and welcome back to another fun-filled, action-packed, cough-drop-driven episode of the ITR Live podcast. I am joined here today in studio with John Hendrickson and Chris Ingstad, and we have a hastily prepared and poorly scripted episode for you today. I might be a little hard on myself, but
I think it oversells the preparation or the script.
I actually do have a lot to talk about.
You haven't shared with us, though, so John and I are
no, I want it to all be a surprise for you. So
right from the hip today.
Now, okay. Well, I guess at the outset, I have to apologize to our listeners that my voice is a little gravelly today, but the folks here in the office tell me it just makes me sound a little bit more stern and angry. So I'm going to lean into that today.
Yep.
All right. So first things first, today is Rapid Reaction podcast episode. Are you ready for this, John?
I am. I'm ready.
President Biden has announced his reelection. There's just this morning. Your reaction is not very rapid right now.
Well, it's I don't know what to say. It's not surprising, but it's I don't know. He's in the running for probably one of the worst presidents we've had in our history.
That will always be Woodrow Wilson, but yes.
Yeah. I mean, this.
Put aside policy differences, okay? Who listens to the way this man addresses, frankly, anyone and says, yes, this is the guy that I want in charge. I feel safer with him at the helm of this country than anyone else. I mean, if you agree with his policy positions, and I would assume roughly half the country does, or some sizable portion, like, how are they like, yes, this is the guy who I want leading us? That's the part I don't understand, Chris.
Yeah, I don't know. You guys watch the video?
No.
I did not know.
So I actually did. Apparently, he went straight after he got home from Ireland and shot some of the video. And I have many thoughts on the video, but to that question, I mean, his approval rating is just abysmal right now. And you know, what's the case for 4 more years of this?
Right.
And
yeah, what is his slogan? Let's finish the job. I think I read.
I think so. And I'm going to come back to that.
Did he steal that from 1940s World War II bonds? I think so.
Or his first political campaign, one of the two.
Yeah,
which would have been about the same era.
About the same time.
Get research on this.
Yeah. The video seems look, there's a lot of, you have to kind of watch the imagery in it, but it's very vapid. It's just democracy. I mean, the first images are January 6th and Trump flags, and it's pretty obvious that the only thing that they have to run on is that President Biden's not Donald Trump, and they're just going to continue to beat that horse. But it's just playing to all their interest groups, and it's, intersectional bingo and trying to, see how many boxes they can check through all the images and we're America and all this. But it's just troubling. But, let's finish the job. And that's that you said, John. I want to explore that a little bit. What job is it that they've been about? What job have they started so far in these first 2.5 years?
I think it's, it is a radical retransformation of America from an economic standpoint, from a social standpoint, from a foreign policy standpoint, because from my perspective, this whole agenda has been not just reckless, but I think to significantly transform the country that we have. And I think there's so much. I was reading an article this morning. It's not a big issue here in Iowa, but Biden and his administration has really crippled the mining industry, which doesn't make sense because, they push this radical environmental agenda, and a lot of the technology that goes into some of the renewables and is you have to have precious metals.
Yeah.
And Biden has put up so much red tape through the permitting process where mines cannot operate, and we're losing out to our competitors. in terms of.
Well, as an aside, did you see Joe Manchin's statement on the Inflation Reduction Act? So he was more or less the author of that because they needed his vote so bad. And he had a bunch of promises made that they wouldn't do this in West Virginia. And he's out saying, calling on the Biden administration, like calling them out for reneging on all these promises. And if you don't do this, I'm going to introduce a bill to repeal the whole thing, which is probably a lot of political nonsense too. But I think it's just, to your point, I mean, he is losing the Joe Manchins of the world, which he's needed to pass any of this stuff in the first place.
And one of our colleagues shared with me just before we started here this morning that Biden had stated that, the kids don't belong to their parents, they belong to everyone else, and which is very dangerous. I mean, these are very radical statements
that is like straight out of the Cuban Revolution, right? When they were taking kids from their parents to indoctrinate them in the state-run schools.
Yeah. I mean,
good.
I think there are a handful of it. Like, we have had a tremendous cultural shift that's happened in this country over the past, pick your number of years. And the American people seem to have sort of gone along with a lot of it, for better, for worse. Mostly for worse. But the idea of taking parents away from children, I mean, I think that's one of those ones where the left probably ought to tread lightly.
Yeah.
I can tell you that there's a great many of political things that the left has brought forward that I don't like, that I fought against politically. But man, try and take my kids away from me, or try and get in the way of that's a completely, that's no longer getting on the podcast and getting mad about it and saying something.
Well, even from, what we focus on the tax and fiscal issues, I mean, if thank goodness that there's divided government right now, but if his budget was enacted, it would not only escalate inflation even more, but it would cripple the economy with his trillions of new tax hikes. And this is supposed to be a person who fed a lie by the media that he was supposedly a moderate Democrat, and that he would not raise taxes. And it's a bunch of BS. I mean, it truly is. I mean, this guy's dangerous. I mean,
and so it comes back to the question I ask: what job has he started that he wants to finish? And it seems to me that it's crippling our economy. We're trying our best here in Iowa to keep our head above water, despite all the headwinds that have been given to us by President Biden and liberals in D.C.
And this is just one, thank goodness for federalism, because this is one reason why we see the leadership of people like Governor Reynolds and Governor DeSantis and some of the other red state governors that are actually doing good public policies, and so you can do a very stark comparison between what's going on in, say, Gavin Newsom's California versus Governor Reynolds' Iowa, and what Biden is doing. You can see clear results of why ideas matter, why policies matter, and why this election is going to be so crucial.
I think that's right. I wonder what 4 more years of President Biden finishing the job means for U.S. foreign policy. We've got a war in Ukraine that they seem hell-bent on getting us even further involved in. We've got a looming conflict with China, maybe over Taiwan, that I don't see a plan for. The world seems less stable than it did 2.5 years ago. What does 4 more years of this administration mean for the national security of the United States? What does it mean for our trade policy? What does it mean? All of these things. And I want to know what the plan, not the platitudes, because the plan just seems to be more the same, and that's not working.
Mm-hmm.
Right, which is why I go back to the question I asked, is even if you philosophically align with President Biden, what do you see that you're like, yes, we want some more? It's easy for us who disagree with him on many things to be like, well, that doesn't make sense. But how could one who would normally agree with him, say, yes, I am pleased where this is going. I know there's a plan. I have confidence he'll be able to carry out. What has he shown you that would make you say, yes, 4 more years?
I wonder if this is going to start backfiring, because I was talking with some people the other day, and they were non-Iowans. They were from a different state, and their Democrat senator was applauding the president's decision to run for re-election, and these particular individuals supported that Democrat senator, and they said, no more. We're not. These are Democrat voters, and they said, we cannot take any more of this radical agenda, and this senator's supporting of him, and so that senator just lost 2 votes because of that.
Well,
and so I wonder if people are starting to wake up and say, well, I was misled that this guy's not a moderate, and they're realizing his radical agenda and dangerous agenda, especially in terms of foreign policy, as you mentioned, and
well, go ahead.
Well, just maybe there is more people becoming more aware of really the hidden agenda of this administration.
Yeah, and I think too, even if I was trying to be a little bit charitable to Joe Biden, which I'm not by saying this, but look at who is in that administration. It is run by activist liberals.
Yes. Yep.
And even if the president himself might not be as out there on the extreme, his staff certainly is. And I think any American probably instinctively understands that this president isn't micromanaging the federal government. I mean, in between naps, I don't think he's probably calling every shot that comes out of the White House. So it's troubling, and that's where the modern left is. And we're going to have a robust conversation, I guess, in Republican circles on what direction they want to go. Do we want to nominate President Trump again and relitigate the 2020 election? And I think, whatever you say of Donald Trump, I think he's got a strong case to make that the country was in better shape when he was president. Maybe not on COVID, but on a whole lot of the economy was still working good. So, which comes back to, I think, the policies work. And then there's a whole idea, maybe we just need to go see what's behind door number 3. No more Trump, no more Biden. Is there another option for America?
Yeah. Well, people will start making that decision come January, and they're thinking about it now.
Yeah.
Right.
And the Iowa caucuses have kicked off here. I mean, they had the Faith and Freedom Coalition event, and the candidates are here. I know you guys got a chance to.
Yeah, John and I had we're part of a small round table with Vivek yesterday.
Yeah.
Both. It's the second time I had heard him speak in person. John, was that your first?
That was my first. Yeah.
But you will come away with a favorable impression of him as an individual, whether you agree with his policies, whether you think his are the best or not. Yeah. That's up for everybody to decide. But impressive individual. He's got a compelling message. I mean, we could say America first. I would say it sounds a little more like American exceptionalism, right? But he really focuses on what it is that truly makes us American, and I would argue what made us great, those sort of things. And again, people should try to listen to him, and he delivers a good product. Okay, and then folks
he
should
strikes.
decide.
I have not heard him. I had an opportunity to, and I couldn't make it. Strikes me as a very bright guy who is speaking on some issues that I'm not sure anybody else is tackling head on and speaks to as eloquently as he does.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's always room in the field for somebody that has that skill.
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, I was very impressed with what he had to say, and I think he has one key issue that nobody's addressing, and that is the lack and the decline of American identity and what it means to be an American. And he spoke very very clear and very passionately about that, of just sort of renewing American values. And one thing that he reminded us in his remarks yesterday was just how gifted that President Reagan was at that. Mm-hmm. And Reagan, a lot of times in his speeches and in other public comments, always reminded Americans of just where we came from, who we are. He always was upholding the Declaration and the Constitution as the bedrock of our republic, and those are the things that unite us. And instead of he focused a lot on the dangers of the woke ideology and a lot of this other stuff that has been tearing America down, actually.
Well, that's good. We're going to have a lot to say over the coming months on the caucuses and the different candidates. So I'm looking forward to all of that. But
maybe the best is to encourage people, if you care enough about these issues, to listen to us. Seek out these opportunities. I mean, if you live in Iowa, it doesn't have to be in Des Moines. If you live in Iowa, you have all the opportunities to see anybody you want to. So go. I mean, you want to ask him a question, you can ask potentially the future president of the United States a question, and they'll answer. They will look you in the face and answer your question. And it's a cool thing if you care about these issues.
It really is, and it matters too. I think that them answering the questions from Iowans makes them better candidates, and it makes them better informed about what people are actually thinking about. Like, there's a real value to retail politics, not just from picking the right candidate, from the candidates getting better at it themselves. So yes, absolutely, be a part of the caucus process. It is a wonderful thing. So we need to touch on, John, and I know that a couple things here that you may not want to talk about. Big changes in the media, both here in Iowa and in at the national level. But here in Iowa, Dave Price is leaving WHO TV, and the insiders in his program, I guess, will no longer be on the air either. And that's been a big part of the Iowa political media process. And we wish, well, at least I do, certainly, Dave nothing but the best, and hopefully he can get that program or something that looks like it back up sometime soon, because I think it's important. And I always thought Dave was very fair in that program.
Yeah, Dave's one of the best in the business, I think, respected by folks on both sides of the political aisle, and he did a good job. And I think most folks saw him as a straight shooter. He also had, been out rural in Iowa for a long time, has some amazing stories to tell, right?
Yeah.
His book, Caucus Chaos, and such, if he relates some of those stories, they're really interesting. And so, he's one of the good ones.
Yeah,
I mean, I can't help his choice of baseball teams, but that's fine.
That's fine.
Not everybody's going to bat 1,000.
So, well, Dave, if you are tuning in, and I doubt you are, but look forward to finding out what's next for you. John, the thing that I know is troubling you, I need your thoughts on Tucker Carlson no longer being at Fox News.
Yeah, I was shocked. In fact, we learned about this during our meeting yesterday, and everyone was talking about it before it started. But I think why it happened, I don't know if it was a result of the lawsuit with Dominion, but I think it's definitely a loss for Fox. I also think it's a loss for millions of Americans who tuned in to Tucker, because he is I would consider probably the most sensible conservative voice that's on air right now. He was very instrumental in a number of areas of addressing issues that are often ignored, even by other conservatives that are on Fox News. And one issue that jumps to mind is the issue of Ukraine.
Yeah.
And it was Tucker Carlson who was able to get a lot of these presidential candidates to actually stake out a position on Ukraine, including Governor DeSantis.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm hoping that Tucker will reemerge on maybe another, I don't know if it'd be another network or some other platform.
I think Tucker's going to be fine.
I agree, but his voice is needed. I mean, we need that strong conservative voice, because there was a huge void that left when Rush Limbaugh passed away. And I think Tucker Carlson is, I think from that, whether you want to call it America First, traditionalist conservative perspective, I think Tucker Carlson really filled that void. And I'm hoping we can have him back soon.
Oh, I agree. And I think that one of the biggest things that Tucker Carlson brings to the table is willing to speak a little bit out of what is considered orthodoxy, or
Yes.
what the kind of the larger
Yeah.
media apparatus says this is what the issues
Yeah.
are. I mean,
And-
he was going to talk about what he wanted to talk about.
And he asked the hard questions
Right.
that a lot of others are afraid to ask because they don't want to upset the establishment.
That's right.
And
And we need that.
yeah,
We need those, and I would say across the political spectrum, that are like gonna report on what they think are the issues of the day, not just what is scripted for them.
yes,
And so I think that's important. I agree with you, Chris. I think that Tucker Carlson is going to be just fine. I mean, Megyn Kelly had that time slot at one point, and she has managed to go her own way and come out very well. And I suspect that Tucker probably does something similar. I mean, there's enough alternative media out there now that he could find that,
Yeah.
and we can get some of that content. Part of this is just the shifting landscape of media in general and how people consume their news. It's we're the last generation that understands what Sunday news shows are,
Yeah,
John.
yeah,
I mean, it's not even relevant at all
No.
to a 20-something.
Yeah.
And so this is all that shift away from that. And maybe it's not the 7 o'clock slot on Fox News anymore
Yeah.
that's driving the conversation, because you got Joe Rogan out with his podcast that's driving the conversation because he's reaching an entire different demographic. And so maybe this is just all the rumblings of how we remake the consumption of media.
It concerns me with Fox though, because prior to Tucker, they gave Lou Dobbs the act, and I think Lou Dobbs was really good, and now he's doing his own podcast, but and so I think you're right. We'll see probably Tucker again, but I mean his voice is needed. I mean,
would it be fair to just offer him an open invite to the ITR Live podcast?
Yeah,
Oh, that'd
like
be-
If he needs a platform, this one's ready to go.
and look, I mean, Tucker Carlson's a longtime friend of the organization. I mean, we know this.
That's true.
And not kidding. Don't laugh, John. But also, I mean, look, we're not a threat. We're not competitors. We're happy to just be here in our little corner. We're not trying to take over the top slot on conservative podcasting. We're just here in Iowa. That's our thing.
I'd welcome both Tucker and Lou to.
That'd be
to
great.
join us.
We could. I tell you what, it'd be one for the ages. It'd be wonderful. So, all right, gentlemen. Well,
Hey, Chris, I just wanted to.
Okay.
Research department got back to us.
Okay.
The Let's Finish the Job was in fact a campaign to get people to buy more war bonds between the defeat of Germany in 1945, but before the Japanese surrendered. So the theme of Let's Finish the Job was we had defeated Nazi Germany. We still have to defeat Imperial Japan, and I guess Biden thinks he right now is somewhere in between those two levels of accomplishment. So there you go.
I don't even know how to respond to that.
Thank you for the research department getting back to us so quickly, though.
I guess
and the good work they do.
Yes, that's right. But I guess if there are war analogies, then it sure feels like this guy wants to have U.S. troops deployed all over the world into all kinds of new conflicts, and it troubles me a great deal.
Yeah.
And I know it does you too, John.
And I actually like the slogan that goes before that, America First.
Okay, well, there we go.
Hope springs eternal, right, John?
That's right.
Okay, good. All right. Thanks for bearing with us. Thanks for bearing with my voice. Appreciate you being part of the podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share. And with that, we will see you next time on ITR Live.